Hello and welcome to insert show name here. Uh,
Game Club.
we are
Patent pending. Name pending.
Yeah, patent
name
pending.
pending, or it's called the
TM.
what's it called? Up to code gaming. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
Code
right.
gaming, whatever it is. This is the pilot anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter yet. We're just selling the idea.
Nothing matters.
Anyway, I'm John Redding.
No.
Joining me is Skeeter and Suspicious
Hello?
Sprat. How are you
Klepto.
two?
I'm Klepto. Wow, you start.
How are you, Klepto? You doing well?
Klepto these nuts.
Yeah, Klepto these nuts. That's right. That's good. That's funny.
No, we're going to be talking to you today about Portal 1. And so, Klepto, why don't you start us off? I reckon we start with the game structure. I think that's pretty important. Just the length of the game. Why don't you start us off on that? You got any thoughts on that?
The length of the game. I was surprisingly, maybe I'll be the odd one out in saying this, but I was surprisingly disappointed by how short it was. Honestly, like it was still like overall great game, but like it feels short, I suppose, in comparison to I don't know, maybe the modern games that are released today.
Look, I think it actually plays to its strength. I think because it at its core, it's just a gimmick game, based around a few puzzles. I think the short linear game is better to show off those sort of things. You wouldn't want it to drag out forever, because after a while you're doing things that are a bit too abstract for anyone to get a hold of. And obviously it's just playing to a mainstream audience.
I do agree that it leaves me wanting more, which can be a good thing, but it also thank God there's a second one, but like it leaves me wanting more. Like, I finished it and I'm like, damn. I finished it like the first time playing it, and then I started playing it a second time straight after because I was like, that was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? So it does leave something to be desired, but I can't really decide if that's a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, look, I was sort of with longer games on just like a really gimmicky idea. I think they would have had to rely on game mechanics that just weren't so flushed out and would have felt a little tacked on for length. I don't know, I feel like it had more concentrated gameplay, because it presented an idea, like the early single portal levels, where you just had access to the blue portal, and you sort of had to wait for the orange one to be made. I think that idea was more concentrated and well flushed out, so you sort of only spent just enough time to understand it and then do it, and then move on, sort of hanging around. I think if the game was twice the length, you would have spent, twice the time doing single portal puzzles. That wouldn't have been so much fun.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's like I think you got to put yourself in the boots of a 2007 gamer in that situation as well, especially, and also 2007 Valve. This is a new IP post. I'm not even sure post TF2. It may have been post TF2. Post Half-Life and Gunman Chronicles, the banger of of Valve development. This is a new IP, and it's alienated from most of the other IPs as well, because it's a puzzle game, first and foremost. It's not a shooter.
Yeah.
So they're launching a non-shooter IP in 2007 in it's a completely new IP as well. You gotta keep it short and sweet, and it has to be a slow burner because you can't really flaunt that shit straight away.
Yeah. I think the shortness of the game is better for keeping your attention. It's definitely a one-sitting game. It's not something you'd save and come back to and finish it at a later date. It's definitely you sit down, you beat it in the 2 hours that it takes to beat, and you put it aside for 2-3 years. You come back, you play it again, because you've forgotten all the solutions. I think that's a strength of the game. I think games that you can beat in a single sitting, I think they're better just because you can sort of put that time aside. It's not something you've got to keep coming back to. A 40-hour game's great and all, but it might take up a whole week, 2 weeks. But I think being able to sit down one night and go, I'm going to play this game, I'm going to beat it, and move it out the way, I'm going to do something else.
I think that's what was really unique about it as well. Playing through for the first time was like, wow, I was able to experience the entire game and the entire story in one sitting when a lot of games, well, at least these days, it's like 40 hours long. But yeah, like in that sense of when I say like it leaves something to desire, it does. In the sense that it was very enjoyable in such a short amount of time, which is, I suppose, not the norm anymore.
It's pretty rare to see something like that. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you reckon was your favourite part, Skeeter? What part?
I think there was one where it was what's it called? There's because it introduces non-portal areas later on in the game. There's like the it doesn't actually either. It just shows you the brown brick as a non-portable, and you just can't put portals in them. There's an area where there's a cube. It's like a pretty long corridor, and it's very high, with a staircase at the back of it. And you go up the staircase, and there's a cube on the left, and it's on like a pedestal of non-portable tiles. It was because the room had so much dynamic stuff in it, so it had like all the non-portal walls, and then once you go up the stairs then descend, so it turns into a pit. So there's like a bit of moving around, like the room is more dynamic, which comes up a lot more in Portal 2 from memory. But
so just trying to figure out what you were doing, that was, trying to read the room was your favourite part. Do you reckon?
Yeah, because you had to set up the puzzle, and then the puzzle then changes partway through, and then you kind of have to reset yourself.
Yeah, sort of thinking on your feet. Yeah, I think the game did that pretty well. Sort of subvert your expectations, and you walk into an area, go, oh, this is what this is, but then halfway through it changes. Yeah, I reckon I did that pretty well. You're right. What about you, Klepto? Anything really stick out for you?
I can't remember what test chamber it is, but it's the one after you use quite a bit of the memento. Memento? Is it the word? Momentum, yeah. Momentum to get to that higher up area, and then you go into a separate room entirely where there's like multiple turrets, and you have to get from one side of the room to the other over the body of water.
Yeah, I think that's
a mixture
18.
of you have to use a mixture of momentum as well as your portals to actually get to each of the platforms that the turrets are on, to be able to like disable them or dismantle them, I guess.
Yeah,
and then
you're right.
Then you can actually safely cross the bridge to get to the what is it? The cube, so you can get back and then get to the end of the level, and then the entire like separate room, after you get your handle on a lot of momentum based work, you then use that kind of skill you've learned of the momentum base to solve that entire room and then get out at the same time, which I thought was really cool and clever. I like how it teaches you, like, a lot of the levels are really like efficient in teaching you the mechanic of that level and then presenting you with a puzzle straight away after. So you figure out, it's the the energy balls that bounce along walls, and you use them to power other switches and stuff. And then there's the other walls, the digital walls, and as soon as you pass through them, it destroys all your portals that you've already placed. And so it teaches you both of those separately. And then once you've gotten an understanding on both of them, it throws you into a puzzle where you have to use both at the same time. But it's not like, it doesn't feel too drawn out, the actual learning phase. It's very like, it's short and sweet. You figure out, you understand how each mechanic works of the puzzle, and then it throws you into an actual puzzle straight away after, which I thought was really well done for even like every single level.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that. I think that sort of loops back around to the length of the game, where it doesn't dwell on anything for too long. Everything's really concentrated. It's sort of like Mario games sort of teach you that. They at the start of a level it will show you just an individual instance of something, and then you keep applying the core of that to different and more progressively harder sort of situations along that level. I think Portal does that pretty well. It doesn't dwell on any individual idea. An old idea might come up later, like in a later portal, or like in a later section, but it doesn't sort of make it its one gimmick the whole way through the game. It'll only ever be like a tiny bit you just got to remember and go, oh yeah, I did that in the earlier level. I've got to do it now just for this tiny piece.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you aren't being babied by the game. Like, it's like, I showed you how to do it, now apply what you've learned to finish the level.
It also reworks, like, whether you were talking about emancipation grids, the digital wall kind of things. It, like, you get introduced to that at the beginning of the game with the elevator doors, and I think specifically, especially for new players, not new players of like Portal, but new players of games in general, would have a really hard time, especially with a game like Portal. And Portal's also like known for being a great game to get people into games as well, because it is a first-person shooter and it is it's slow paced and to the player's pace. And that's also because it sets up its game design very, very, very well for any entry level of player, because of its teaching, the way it teaches and introduces ideas. Like, so you become accustomed to the emancipation grid, and then it's used in puzzles later on. Nothing is really too
you can't progress through the game without hitting the requirement. So you're sort of stuck in an area, but even if you were to skip that area, you'd get stuck later. Because everything sort of, especially in the last couple of levels, everything you sort of do everything at once. You get your momentum, you have enough power things, your platforms, your sentries, everything's sort of going on at once. But you've seen it all in a simpler form earlier in the game. So while it might be a big puzzle, everything you can sort of break it down into individual steps. And you've seen it all before. So if you were to skip, learning about the energy balls, in a later level, you might just be completely screwed over because you don't know what you're doing. I think that's good about the game. Especially with the shortness of it, is that even when you get frustrated, you might get frustrated on one particular level, but you're only frustrated for 5 minutes while you're trying to work something out, and then the rest of the game, sort of clicks, and you're better off because of it.
That's a little bit like Titanfall, actually, with the campaign in the second game, because it's short and sweet, and then because every level has its own gimmick. And none of the gimmicks overstay their welcome because they're not used again. It's a bit different, but introducing things to the player and then having them be interesting and fleshed out in a level, and then going to the next level. But yeah, I think especially even if you do get stuck, like say you're playing Portal, and you get stuck on like the 4th level, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta go work now. You come back a few days later, and you come back and like, man, I don't know how to play this game again. You can just restart because the game is only an hour or two long. Like, you can just restart. And you can just breeze through what you already did because you remember it from the last PlayStation. Which is, I guess, is another appeal, especially for very, very new people. Like, say it was 2007, you just bought your first computer, you have no idea what the fuck you're doing. You just boot up the game, play an hour or two of it, and like, oh man, I have no idea what I'm doing. Leave for work, come back tomorrow, like, oh shit, now I don't know where I was up to. I don't know how to play this game anymore. You start from the beginning again.
I guess that sort of leads into the replay value of the game. Like, I know people who go back and play it, every 6 months. Like, if you were to go back and play it now, like, how long do you reckon it'd take you to beat it if you were to play it now, or in like a year from now? Does going back to the game later bring, do you forget your old puzzles? Is it worth coming back to this game?
Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, it was enjoyable, definitely. I mean, I knocked it over in a single. I think we all knocked it over in a single session, didn't we?
Yeah, single night.
First time I knocked it over, single session.
Yeah, it took about an hour the first time, and then everything else after that was like half an hour, 20 minutes. I think I played through the game 3 times altogether, just to sort of get an idea of what it's like. But I think by the end of it, I was just sort of going through it backwards.
Yeah, there's a lot to what's it called, especially with the achievements, because it is such a small designed experience. They really, really packed in a lot of I guess the story Easter eggs, but also just Easter eggs like with the radios and the cameras.
And I guess with the Easter eggs, I like that sort of small, sort of off to the side storytelling, but I don't know. I feel as if Valve games, especially, are sort of subject to their fan base, where everything's sort of picked apart and dissected. I mean, I couldn't imagine how many different Portal theories I've sort of watched on YouTube over the years before I even played the game for the first time last week. And I guess that sort of ruined it for me. Like, I can't look at games like Half-Life or Portal or anything like that from Valve without going, oh yeah, I've seen every little aspect of this game picked apart and pulled apart by the community around it. I guess that's sort of, a blessing and a curse of being a Valve level, production.
And that, I guess, what's it called, really plays into its little cultural, impact that it had. Considering it's such a small game and so intrinsically designed, and I don't think it was released to be successful, but it was just released.
Yeah, no one even knew that it was coming out. It sort of came out with the orange box, and like people were more excited for Team Fortress 2 and re-release of Half-Life. People saw this Portal game and went, "What the hell is this thing?"
Both TF2 and Portal came out on the exact same day.
Yeah, really, what's it called?
Yeah.
Played to the curiosity of many.
Yeah.
And definitely with all of its very deliberate and intrinsic design with the story beats and everything like that, or lack thereof as well.
Yeah.
It's a game of it's a game of measured mood, very like measured pacing, extremely measured game, very intrinsically paced game.
Well, you've spoken about your favourite parts. Klepto, what do you reckon was your least favourite part of that game?
Least favorite?
What do you reckon?
From the actual like main game, it would probably have to be. I didn't mind that. I didn't hate the turret level, but there was a certain level of just like, man, what the fuck? Like there was like even if you slipped up slightly, you did get killed, which I guess is like fair punishment. It's not like you would lose, an hour of progress or anything like that. Like heaven forbid if it was like there was a hardcore mode. But I don't know if either of you had a chance to play the challenge maps, but they're just they're just the regular rooms, but with extra like difficulties. So for the turret, the room where the room where you learn about turrets and stuff, for the challenge version, all of the turrets are in cages, so you can't actually knock them over. So you have to get through the entire level without not like killing a single turret because you can't actually kill the turret, which made me like disdain the turrets in Portal like all together. But I'd say from the main game, it'd probably have to be probably the turret room. I think of all the levels, that was probably my least favorite. But overall, even then, like I still enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think as the game goes on, I think a few too many things sort of you got to fudge. Like you almost feel as if you're breaking the level, but that's actually the correct way of doing it. You got to it feels like you're fudging or skipping a part of the level. Sort of things didn't feel right, But I guess I guess that is a quality of the game as well. Like you do end up beating it.
You do end up breaking out of the actual actual chambers as well. So I think that might actually play to the pacing of the game as well.
Yeah,
there's more like free-form escapism kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty smart if it's designed that way. Especially
it's 2007. Who knows?
Yeah. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, that was on purpose.
Maybe like what's it called? A fucking secondary school English teacher analyzing a book.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Oh yeah, the drapes were black for a reason. It just wasn't really like
the drapes were just black, alright.
It felt right. That's all it was.
Well, have you two got any extra notes to add onto that? I think that's a pretty conclusive look at that.
For what I didn't enjoy, I think for like levels, not levels, but just in general, I think it may actually be a product of a variable frame rate because I think the game was originally designed to be at 60 FPS or 30. Picking up physics objects and moving around and then looking over edges just immediately drops them. I found because I had that and I kept dropping because I was trying to do the radio thing. I kept dropping the radio into acid over and over again just because I was moving too fast, which was very irritating. But crap, I had a level. Oh, I think the boundary break area, like when you get out of the escape the actual facility is a little bit too long. But then again, I was rushing through it when I was doing it, so I was getting a bit impatient. So I think if you're like doing it for a first playthrough and you're like, man, I've
escaped.
exited, I've escaped, you'd be much more like apprehensive and slowly going through it.
Yeah, I guess that's going to be an
Really
issue with a series like this where you're trying to get through games. It can feel,
Yeah.
oh, I just got to get this part done, or I got to get this part done, or finish this game, by here, or by this time, I guess
Yeah.
I guess almost too critically looking at a game sometimes. But I guess you're right.
Yeah.
When you especially at the start where you're flying through levels and then you sort of come to a grinding halt. I guess trying to finish the game can feel a bit like an effort. You're right in that.
I think
You're right in that sense.
Definitely as a first time very like slow playthrough, you'd be like looking around like, whoa, I'm outside of the chambers. Where am I going? What's happening? Whoa.
I felt kind of the opposite, actually. I felt like with the pacing kind of shifted between the actual test chamber levels and escaping the actual test chamber structure. Like, I felt like doing the actual test chambers, it felt like a very certain pace. But as soon as I switched up to the like outside of the test chamber walls and whatnot, it felt like I had to escape as quick as possible. You know what I mean? So I do agree with the whole rushing thing. It feels like I gotta get out of here as fucking quick as possible because there's a robot that is just trying to fucking burn me alive.
Again, very smart if that's designed that way.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Who knows, mate?
I think it is because it's the architecture is all changed and all the props are all over the place and nothing is designed in it's more designed to be undesigned. It's meant to be a bit more noisy and industrial and
Well, it feels like you're not supposed to be there. Whereas the chambers are specifically designed for you to play around with the portals in the chambers. But as soon as you leave, it's like, I'm not supposed to be here. Especially because of how little surface areas that you can actually use your portal gun on because you're not meant to be there.
I think that's also a good analysis of just design in general is that the boundary escape section is short, really short, actually, from like realizing it, but it feels like it's long because you want to leave because you're trying to escape something. It feels like it's like really long, whereas the rest of the game obviously was like in proportion a whole lot longer than the other like section is, but it just feels long because you're trying to move through it
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's kind of on purpose, the pacing, like switch up from test chambers where you don't feel a sense of urgency at all. You're like, I have all the time in the world to try and figure out the puzzles, to switching to the actual outside of the test chambers and through the back, the industry or the industrial area. Like, I've got to get out of here. I'm not supposed to be here. I got to get out before GLaDOS finds me.
Yeah. What was your least favorite part, John?
Oh, I think just waiting for the early levels where you knew what you had to do, but you're just sort of waiting for the game to let you do it. Like there's one puzzle where you got the orange portal gun, where you pick up the orange portal gun in that test chamber, where you're watching it go from one wall to the next wall. I feel like it's such a short game where you're doing lots of things at one time, where you're just sort of forced to stop and watch. Can feel a bit, especially when you know what you have to do, and you might be stuffing it up, and you have to just keep waiting. I feel just things like that can be a bit frustrating, but that might just be, my ADHD.
You're so smart.
No
You
way.
already figured out the puzzle before.
Yeah, and the elevator door's open. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Well, I don't know. I think it's like the first Star Wars. You had to have existed in 2007 and been, experiencing the game before it become really that, big to really have experienced what it was like to play the game. I think the context of Portal now, especially, over the last few years, is that it is a big game and everyone knows about it and everyone's known all the secrets about it.
Yeah, I guess it's almost been spoiled for me countless times before I even played it,
Yeah. Like an interesting thought of mine is like, imagine watching the first Star Wars and not know, or the third Star Wars rather, or was it second? I forgot which one. And not knowing Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Yeah.
Imagine having that be a surprise. I couldn't imagine. I was never experienced that. That was never something that I could ever have experienced.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the mystique and curiosity you have with Portal. Is that everything's explained even before you play the
everything's
game.
been dissected and pulled apart by 100 different people on YouTube. You know, in hour-long videos before you even thought about downloading the game.
And I think the only context really where you can actually, if you had a girlfriend and you wanted to introduce games to your girlfriend, then you'd show a Portal.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's probably like the only context because you'd have to experience or be experienced at playing games, understand Portal and how it works, and have all the beats already spoiled for you. And to tell someone else, oh, you should play this game, most people already have. And if they haven't, it's someone who doesn't play games. It's most likely your girlfriend.
Very short, but I really like the atmosphere music. I guess it's you. I think you mainly feel it during the test chamber levels, but it's that kind of like humming music that plays throughout not the music on the radio, but the actual like humming of the testing chambers. It's that very slow. Like it kind of blurs the line between like background atmosphere, and music. Where
that's true. I didn't even I remember noticing it. Like, oh, this is cool, and then
I thought it was so
about
fucking sick.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it. I'd probably have to go back through and sort of focus on it. But I guess I was playing the game too much to even realize.
I feel like it kind of drops the ball during the actual escape section, because for the escape section, whenever there's music playing, it's like this just upbeat, like kind of techno music, which is still good, but it like when you compare, it's not atmosphere, it's not that blurred line between atmosphere and music like it is during the test chambers, or even like I think it's best you can best hear it during the main menu.
I think I remember noticing it, and I think I remember thinking that it is of time. It's 2007.
Oh, yeah, definitely of the time. But like that atmosphere music where that it's blurred between is this atmosphere or is this just music. I thought that was really, really clever, and I wish that there was some sort of version of it during that second, like that escaping part. But I thought that was really unique and cool.
Or more appropriately, none at all.
Yeah, or maybe none at all. What about you, John? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Geez, not really, I guess. I've dissected it too much in my mind for anything to really come up. Look, I liked the game. I definitely liked it. Even if I've had it spoiled for me, I've probably watched like 10 different ways of beating the game, from speed running to just playing through it for the first time, and then playing it myself. I guess I can only really see it as an objectively good game now. I can't really fault it on anything. I guess if anything, what Skeeter said, maybe the engine might play up every now and then and cause some frustration, or like I said earlier, the sort of waiting for the level to catch up to where you're at.
Yeah.
But I think outside of that, it's pretty much a faultless game. Nice short game.
It is timeless game design.
Yeah,
it transcends itself.
Exactly. It's such a good game that you can probably pick it up in 20 years from now and go, this is still a great game. And there's very few games that have done that.
Yeah, it's not 2007 game design. It's not a 2007 game. It is just a game that is good, and it is not held back by its time. Maybe a little bit by the music. It's probably the only thing, and maybe by the engine.
Yeah, the engine.
Obviously.
Yeah. Oh, even the graphics. I mean, the art style will hold up.
Yeah, it fits.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, you might go, oh, yeah, the textures aren't all that good, but the art style around it, you completely forget about.
Imagine the game fading to obscurity and talk about maybe the Fortnite crowd or the crowd that comes after them experiencing this game for the first time, because they wouldn't have. It'd be like a creepypasta, like a really, really good creepypasta.
Yeah.
50 years from now, you just gotta wait.
Yeah.
Have some kids, tell your grandkids about it.
Tell your grandkids about it.
Oh, you can do that.
Just slip it into their lives. Just keep writing the word Portal.
That's actually a great, like, Halloween game for you, like, to show your kids.
This is what I played 50 years ago.
Oh, kids, I found this game on my USB stick downstairs. You want to see?
The fuck
You
is a
gotta blow
USB,
stuff
Dad?
up,
We're
eh?
using light drives
Yeah,
now.
what's a USB?
What the fuck is he? You got a USB to light drive connection
What's
there?
the computer?
What do you mean this game isn't VR?
We'll have nanochips in our brains now,
Yeah,
Granddad.
Dad, it's fucking nanomachines now.
That's like fucking instantaneously plays the game like in 3 seconds and just plugs it in the back of his head and he comes out of the game and just starts crying.
I was trapped in test chamber 19 for 7 years.
I guess that pretty much wraps it up. Klepto,
Yeah.
It's time to wrap it up. So
Yeah,
people
let's gotta keep this brief.
Let's not a rating, but like good or bad game, Portal.
Good, definitely very good. I think
Very
that's
good, yes.
I think it's a unanimous good. Good?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thanks for listening. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Me, tore me to pieces, every piece into the fire. As they burned, it hurt because I was so here for you. And these points of the data make a beautiful line. And it is online. I'm gonna the things you learn from the people who are still alive.